Hey everyone. I think we are live and finally we have Sean here. So really great to have you, Sean, in this session. And let me introduce a bit about yourself and why we are doing this session. And I'm Joshua from Developer Relations team at Aviyel. And if you don't know about Aviyel is a platform to support open source and help the open source projects to sustain. And we are creating great content. You can check out our platform. There are lots of content on open source projects. If you are a beginner, if you are a maintainer, if you are a contributor of open source, or if you are just a content writer or you're curious about how open source works, you can get into our platform, connect with us, and sustain open source. That's our aim. And we are still in the beta phases. We are evolving as a product. And these are the sessions we are trying to give out value to the community, which they're not getting in YouTube or in other spaces, because a lot of content has been overwhelmed everywhere. Like people are confused what to learn, where to explore. So that's why we are here. And we have Sean today. Great to have you again. And we have few attendees as well. You can share with your friends and with your community. Maybe they can get the best out of this session. It will be a very short podcast session, but short sessions matter a lot. Like in less time, how much value you get, that really matters than the length of the session. So Sean is here and I'm really excited. He's been a developer experience engineer at Stackbit, and he's also worked in different places before, more than 10 years of experience. And he's been a director of technology at Ample, which I am going to ask you about and your experience, how you evolved as a developer and especially as a developer evangelist and advocate or developer relations, whatever you can call it. We have different names for it. And over to you, Sean.
All right. Thanks, Joshua. And thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here. So a little bit about my background. I've been in the developer space community for about 10 years or so. And I came from, I had studied civil engineering. So I was getting ready to work on construction sites, essentially. And ended up, what happened was this company I was working for, it didn't have a lot of jobs, but they had a lot of need in the marketing department, and had seen that I really liked writing. And that's, I think a theme for me throughout my career is really enjoy writing and sharing my experiences and what I've learned. And so I joined this marketing department, and through that work, that was about 10, 12 years ago. And it was when we were seeing this trend of different departments through bigger organizations start to embed technical people on their teams rather than having to go to IT teams for everything, any technical needs. And so I saw that was a need on my team, and then it just kind of slowly evolved. I got interested in writing a little bit of code just to tinker with some of the products we were working with. And then that kind of just evolved. It evolved naturally. Took a few freelance jobs on the side, and then eventually took a leap. And so I took that leap about 10 years ago, joined a small agency, and for that essentially defined the next almost 9 years of my career. Bounced around a couple agencies, spent a couple years doing freelance work, went from WordPress to Ruby on Rails to more of this modern decoupled Jamstack type of, really JavaScript heavy development. And, but throughout all that time, making a lot of, mostly marketing type of websites. And then this last year, I made a couple of jumps, but the big one was from, I guess two things really happened at the same time. I moved from an agency and like client focused development to product, and working on product teams. And the other thing that happened in that job change was that I went from either managing or mostly writing code to being this, yeah, like you said, developer experience, advocate, evangelist, whatever you want to call it. So more of the writing, teaching, evangelizing came into the fold. So that's that quick background on the last 10 or 12 years or so.
Wow, that's interesting. That really inspiring, and how you have evolved. I think you have touched every point you can, right from the freelancing, clients, products, and civil engineering, marketing, and then JavaScript, Jamstack, and now evangelizing. So I think it sums up everything. You have a lot of. It's great to have people who are creative and who are into different areas, right? It somehow adds into what you are doing right now, and that's really interesting. So I'm curious about you evolution with Jamstack. I mean, with your evolution basically was from the client focused projects to the products, like to the product based companies or working with the products. So I'm just curious about what really motivated you to have the jump. Was there any inspiration behind that one, or was it only your call for that?
Yeah, I think there was, like any move, some frustration, and there's this saying we have, which is the grass is always greener. It always looks like it's going to be more fun or more lucrative or fulfilling to make this jump. But I'll talk about that frustration first, which is that this client driven type of work, agency type of work. It's really driven by the clients. I mean, that's the business. That's how they make money. And I saw these opportunities to like be more methodical, try to give us more space to make a better product, to build a foundation that we could build every site on. And some agencies are successful with that. Most agencies that I've seen struggle with that sort of like consistent, methodical foundation, starting point. And that's because they have to move really, really quickly. And so we just like build a project, ship it. Maybe we come back to it if they need help, but mostly it's ship it, leave it alone.
Yeah.
And so I wanted to really explore the product space, because it seemed like, well, if you're taking VC money, then you still have people to answer to. Sure, you still want to win, you still want to get something out there, and so you're still moving fast, but we're able to set our own deadlines. We're able to determine through user feedback, what we think is the valuable piece to add to the tool and how we're going to do it. And I was really curious, like, does working on the same thing day in and day out, is that okay? Is there ways to make that feel fresh? Because the one really great thing about the agency world is if you get tired of a project, you can usually just walk away after a few months and be done with it.
Not to judge or something, but the client space is more like you have to build the product no matter what and just ship it. You be with that mindset where you focus on shipping more than evolution of the product or what you can make the product better. But I'm not judging or something. But yeah, I have come through. Like I've worked with a few clients before when I was a student, right? So some clients don't really understand what we are trying to tell them, even if we try to simplify in easy words. And it really frustrates that they are not understanding this thing, and we are trying to make things right, but they choose the wrong direction sometimes, and it frustrates the whole lot of things. And that was interesting, and thanks for sharing that one. And I have also seen one of your videos. I think it was posted by Versal's official YouTube channel, right? So you talked about
yes.
CMS, basically an ample, I guess, and you told in the beginning of that video that you love sandwiches. So what is all about that? Like, why do you love only sandwiches? I know it's a fun question. It's not relevant to technology, but it's really good to know about you. So I'm just curious.
Yeah, that's fair. I'm trying to think, where did it even begin? I don't know. I think it just kind of started as a joke at Ample. We before pandemic hit, we worked in this smaller office, open office concept, and so it was and it was a small team. I think we got up to 15 or 16 or so, and so like nice, really fun, friendly atmosphere, and so lots of fun joking around in there. And there was this little sandwich shop across the street from where our office was. And so it would be, a lot of those, back to the, like, we're moving quickly agency days, like we've got a client meeting, got to ship this website. And so there's not a lot of time sometimes to grab lunch. So it was always like, I'm always at that sandwich shop across the street. And I think what happened was, it might've even been that presentation was kind of the beginning of talking a lot about sandwiches, because I was putting this talk together, and that was for Next Conference 2020, so last year, and just talking to a coworker, like going through the slides and all that, and she had said, "Well, you need a thing. This is your, you've got to add some personality to this thing." And I like to do that anyways when I'm giving talks, and it's like, well, let's talk a little bit about sandwiches. And so I guess that's kind of where it started, and now it's just kind of a funny thing to play with. And I gave another talk recently where I did something like, I said, I'm gonna hide little sandwich icons in the background of some of the slides. If you point them out, then you win something. I don't know what it is. So that's yeah, just a fun. Now it's just a fun thing to play with.
Oh, that's interesting. Thanks for that ice-breaking thing. If someone wants to know why, it was a good answer, and it was really interesting. I love talking to people, and I love to hear from people most of the time, whatever it is, and that really helps in some or the other way. Thanks for that. And you told that your interest in development started with writing, right? If I'm not wrong. Mm-hmm. So you started your career into tech, from marketing to writing stuff, and then coding, and now to Jamstack world. So what really interested you to write? Were you writing before, or you just started for the first time back then?
Yeah, I have always I've liked writing, and I had done some creative writing when I was younger, and probably not good if I went back to it today, but I play some music as well. So I would like writing lyrics or poetry-ish sort of things. And at one point I got through, I have a draft of a novel sitting somewhere, though that is probably no good, and I should dust off and go back at that. So the foundation was really in creativity, creative writing. And I've been doing that on and off since I was probably 15 or 16 years old. And so then in writing just kind of keeps popping up in my journey. And like I said, it is what got me on this marketing team. And then while I was at this company, this construction company, the marketing team was small, but the company was pretty big. And so we had, as I said, like the technology was evolving. We had more and more responsibilities. And so I had my hands in all of these different things. And one of them was in starting to produce video and bringing some photography in-house. And so as I was doing that, I was learning so much. And I was like, I need to write this. I need to write this stuff down somewhere. So I should start a blog. What everybody says, I should start a blog. But I didn't really know how to do it right. And I had a coworker at the time who was blogging for new moms, writing lots of posts to be helpful to moms. And she had been fairly successful with it. And she said, well, just do it. Just create an account, start putting your stuff out there. And that was the nudge I needed. And that goes back to, I think, 2011. And so that's really, I feel like that's the beginning of, I was doing some marketing type of writing at that time, but this was the shift to really, I think, technical writing that I would see kind of flow throughout the rest of my career, or the next 10 years, I should say. Wow.
Interesting. So you started writing before 10 years itself when you entered into this tech space, right? And do you have, I think writing is the most powerful soft skill anyone should have or anyone can have. Writing and communication really makes your things better and easy. And do you have any suggestion for the community who want to write but they haven't started? Do you want to give any suggestion for that folks who want to improve their soft skills and who are looking for improvement in writing and speaking? So do you have any suggestions from your side?
Okay, so you're talking if somebody maybe they know how to write code, but they're not writing documentation or blog posts or anything like that, but they're interested in getting that space. That's what you're talking about.
Yes, okay. Exactly. Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I think I loved the advice of just go do it to start. Like the best advice I think that I've received in writing, and when I see my writing getting better, is do it every day. And I would also say put it out there. Sure, publish every day. The more you get out there, the more potential you have to get feedback, and feedback really helps. And I think that's probably the most important thing, is just the more you write, the better you get at writing, especially if you can get that writing in front of other people and get some feedback on it. But so that's really just to get started, hone the craft. There's another really probably like a set of practices in terms of what you can do with that writing to make it relevant and interesting and helpful to developers. Because what I've found, I feel like my writing has evolved over time, but it has really evolved in the last year and a half or so, as I've put a lot more attention on teaching developers specifically. And what I'm learning is that developers, they want to move fast, and they don't. Sometimes the story is interesting, but not always. So if it's something technical, the trouble I always had is I'm a storyteller, so I want to tell the background. I want to tell you why you're here. And that can be helpful in the right context. But a lot of times, if you're writing something technical, it's get to the point, tell somebody exactly what they need to know, but only the minimum that you need them to know, and get them in, get them out. Because I think that's what I had really struggled with is, on one hand, you want people's attention, but really it's not just about having the reader's attention. You want to be helpful. You want to give something back to the user. And so you want to write in a way not that pleases or satisfies you as a writer, but you want to write in a way that is very empathetic, very driven toward the person who is going to use the thing you're writing, and doing that, really like keeping that in front of your mind the entire time.
Awesome. That really makes sense. I think that one line really hit me up, that you have to think the user's perspective or the reader's perspective rather than for your own satisfaction. And one more important thing you mentioned is, I want to rephrase the thing again, that in the minimum time, how much value you are getting to the user, giving to the user. That's more important than you're a good storyteller and you like to elaborate things, but at times elaboration is not good for everything. You have to make it minimal and make it really small as it can, but it should be valuable. That's the whole point, right? Awesome.
Exactly.
That's amazing. So almost halfway, but it was really great for the session. I have a few more things I want to ask you personally. And for you have been part of director of technology in Ample, right? So I hope you have managed the teams with the product and with the developers and with a lot of stuff. So do you have any team productivity tips on how you can actually work efficiently and better with the teams, especially when you are building some product? So you have any personal suggestions?
Well, I don't have a lot of experiences in terms of building product teams, so to speak. Since I've been in the product space, I've either been on a really small team or focused more on the developer evangelism piece. As director of technology at Ample, I was managing our developers, and we got up to a team of 6, I believe. So still really, really small team. I think it's a good question. When I think back to that time, I think that I could, the 2 big pieces of advice I would give somebody would be, as you're building the team and then when you have the team. So as you're building the team, I think it's really important, and maybe this is obvious, but really important to be very intentional about what you're doing, and to the best of your ability understand the effect or the consequence of the decisions that you make. So one example is, if I have a small team, do I want to build up what we might call a bunch of A players, so really senior level developers, and I'm just doing senior level developers and everybody can handle, then what do you get? Well, you get people who maybe one are really opinionated about what they're working with, but maybe that's good. But you also get people who can run really fast and solve problems quickly, but you're also going to pay a lot of money for that sort of thing. And so then you kind of have to balance that with, okay, well, what's important to you? Because you can hire more junior folks and you're going to spend less money doing that. And you might have more influence over them and their career, but you're going to have to spend a lot more time with them, and the work product you're going to get out of it may not be as good, and it won't come together as quickly. So I think as you're building the team, finding the right balance for you, knowing what you're trying to achieve and what kind of effort you want to put in as you're building that team. Once the team is in place, I found through managing that, it's developers. So I think the easy answer is, well, you clearly define the problems, let them run fast, give them some autonomy, and be available to help when they need it. And I think that's important, but I also think it's, I think I knew that going into that role. What I didn't know, or maybe one of the biggest epiphanies that came to me, was that being direct and honest, and I'm not trying to say intentional, but it's setting expectations for what you want. I feel like I became, I was having the best success as a manager when I could establish trust with my team, and clearly like let them know on an individual basis what I expected out of them, what the company expected out of them, and to then we have something to measure against. But really, I think everybody works better that way. And then when they're not meeting those expectations, or even if they are meeting those expectations, telling them, and not just saying you're doing a good job to keep somebody's motivation up, but giving specific feedback, because that it all helps, and it helps build trust. It helps build better teams, and so I think those are intangible pieces, so to speak, but I think they're relevant regardless of whether you're building a product team or an agency team or a developer team, or it's all like those qualities. They still need to be there if you're going to be successful, I think. Awesome.
I think that really sums up everything. I think every team, you generalized everything. That's the best part. I think that really helps to have a straight, I cannot say straight, but to have a direct, you should have to be transparent of what you are thinking from that particular developer, what you are expecting, and you have to be straight. And that helps like a feedback, right? When you give a better feedback, things become better. Even if it is good or bad, in the end, it benefits the overall team, right? I think that's nice. That's great. And
exactly.
You what are your personal productivity solutions? What do you use, or what do you do for the productivity personally?
Oh, that's a great one. I am always trying to figure that out, and always constantly evolving. Sometimes so much so fast to my detriment. But I'll tell you what I'm doing today that is working for me in the moment. And I think maybe if I step back, the advice there is my solution is not going to work for everybody. I think the important sentiment to take away is that keep experimenting and figure out what works for you, and what works for you today might not work for you tomorrow as life changes. What works for me today with 2 little kids working at home in a asynchronous job with people all over the world is not the same experience when I find productivity differently and in different ways than I did 4 years ago when I was going to an office in downtown every day. But that said, what I'm doing today that I really like, and I've been doing for about a year, is that I'm using Notion for everything today. I love it because I can keep everything together. It took me a while to love it, but I do now. And so every week I go in and I create a new page and set goals for the week. So it's like sprinting on myself almost. What am I going to get done for the week? And in doing that, I have found that I've gotten smarter about what I can reasonably accomplish in a week. And I personally, I shove everything together, like how things that I'm going to get done at home, things we're going to do together as family, but also some of the bigger work products or side projects that I want to get done in a week. And I've learned that I can. It started with it was kind of funny. It started. I've been doing this for about a year, and early on, I was setting, like 40 or 50 things I'm going to get done this week, and I'm nowhere close. And I look at the last few months, it's more like 25 to 30 tasks, and it's really interesting to see that it's been cut down significantly. But most weeks I'm getting these things done because I say, I know what I'm going to get done this week. These are my priorities. I'm going to stick to those. And the reason I'm able to get those things done is because I'm setting clear boundaries, but within a reasonably flexible system. And this is the piece that has evolved for me over time, because I I used to be really rigid, like this is the thing I'm going to work on at this time. And I would schedule my calendar out for the whole week. And it just got really hard. People don't like that. It's hard. It's like, it looks like I'm busy all the time. But then I don't have a lot of room to flex and to chase something that might pop up and be important and still be able to get everything done because I've jam-packed everything in there. And so today it's just little chunks. I have maybe 2-hour chunks throughout the day where I'm going to go into do not disturb mode, no notifications, and I'm going to put my head down and work on the things that I need to work on. And that could be a balance. 2 hours could be spent in, I'm writing docs for Stackbit, but the other 2 hours might be like, okay, I'm doing a side project, or I'm going to do Stackbit for the first hour, and then I'm going to do the side project for the second hour, or I'm going to work on the house, but this is the time that I'm doing that. And so it's not scheduling out 8 or 10 or 12 hours a day. It's like 4. In these 4 hours, I'm going to work. I'm not going to pay attention to messages. And that balance, or that formula has helped me find this balance. And when I work with this set of things tasks that I want to go after for the week, I've found that I feel productive more than I don't, and I feel, even with less time, more productive probably than I have in really at all in my career at any point.
Oh, that's interesting. I think you also answered about the work-life balance on how you, as you recently mentioned in our last call, that you got 2 little children and you have to manage that and you have to come back to work. And you set some categories of work, right? Like super productive mode, 2 hours, super productive. Like you will not do multitasking at that point of time. You are dedicated to the prioritized task on that particular day. And later you try to multitask, or if there is something that comes up in the home and family, you take that in between and switch work and other tasks, right? Which are usual for everybody. I think that's the best strategy to improve the productivity, because I have realized from past years that we try to do all things at once, but that don't really happen, right? So we have to be switching 2 or more things, relaxing your mind, focusing on your mental health at the same time, not getting frustrated so often. I think this is what it really helps, like dividing into chunks, and every chunk has its own priority and own like productivity level, or whatever you can call it. So yeah, I think that sums up.
I was thinking you added a piece there that I didn't say, that actually it's been really difficult for me. I'm somebody who I have a lot of different interests and several hobbies, and I want to do all of them. But one thing that I have done that has been really difficult for me is minimize work in progress. So if I am going to do some project out in the yard, but I'm interested in, I've been doing some baking. So like I'm interested in learning how to bake this new thing, to say, well, I'm going to, one of 2 methods. One is I'm going to get this amount of this thing done this week, and I'm okay with that. And I'm okay with this project taking a long time, but I'm going to at least make progress on it. Or I'm going to only work on this thing until it's done, and then I'll move to the other thing. And that the balance of those 2 things has really helped. Like it's kind of how I read books as well. I'm either saying I'm all in on this book and I'm not going to read anything else until I'm done with this book. Or sometimes when I know a book is going to be harder to get engaged in, I might read 2 at the same time, but then to make sure I'm not going to fizzle out on one of them, I say, okay, well, you're going to read a chapter in each book every week. And so we're making progress. And I think that balance of, it's okay to not do something right now, and it's okay for something to take a long time as long as you're making progress on it. Those were really difficult evolutions for me, but I feel like I'm in a good space there. And then you saying like focus on what you're doing, minimize your work in progress. I think that has really helped for sure.
Yeah, I think that's I think we are adding more and more thoughts as we go, and we have few more minutes. And by the way, it was really a great conversation, and I have one more question. What are your major learnings, like overall? I think you explained a lot of things in this session with the work-life balance, with the team management, with your evolution from a client-based to product-based ecosystem. But what are your major learnings from this, like overall, your evolution?
Yeah, just through, you mean like through what have I learned throughout my career, really?
Yeah,
is that what you're asking?
Throughout your experience, right? What are your major learnings so that anyone who is starting, right, can get to know about it, and maybe it can be easier for them?
Okay. I feel like we have touched on a handful of those. One thing we haven't talked about that might be helpful is that it is okay to make mistakes, and I don't think it's also okay to strive to be great and even strive to be perfect, and to be frustrated when making mistakes. But those I think, like, rolling over mistakes and learning from them, but then shaking them off and not forgetting, but just shaking them off and then going, like, using that to make you better, that is a very natural thing. And the better I've gotten better at it over time, but I found that the better we get at recognizing some mistake, failure, etc., noting it, learning from it, and then leaving it and not carrying it with you as baggage, not getting weighed down by that I think that is really helpful. And one thing that I don't think we really talk about much as senior level engineers to folks coming up in the industry is that we've all made mistakes throughout our development career, especially when writing code. Everybody's written some really bad code at some point, and we don't talk about those things, I think, enough. So it can be really scary. And so I'm trying to, as I have conversations with folks, I like asking that question of, like, well, what's the dumbest thing you've ever done, or what's the biggest mistake that you have made when writing code? And I get some good answers. Like I had, I worked with an engineer who, and still work here and there today, who's been writing code for 25 years or so. And I mean, he's been around. He, like, at one point in early days, he had accidentally deleted 30 days worth of data for this big client, and there were no backups. And so now we can laugh about those things. And I think that's what I really love. It's like, let's tell those stories, let's laugh about those things, and let's to people up and coming now, to know that those things happen to us, and we're okay, and we're still here, and we learned a lot from them. And so that's, I think that's important. That's important to know.
Yeah. So you mean learn from the mistakes, but don't stay focused on mistakes only, right? You have to note it down, and you focus on your evolution, and it goes off the list automatically, right? I guess that's what you're trying to sum it up. And yeah, it's really great. And you have been through a lot of roles, right? Starting from marketing, technology. I've been repeating this because I love interacting with people who are into multiple hobbies. And you also mentioned in your website that you love baking, and you love reading, you love writing. So I think you did everything as you can, and that's really inspiring at the same time for people who stay focused on one thing, but when something new comes up, they we can see a question mark on that face. So instead of a question mark, I think little bit of everything really helps in your daily routine, right? That's great. That's great. I really appreciate that. And last and final question. So you told that you have been working with the Jamstack space a lot these days, right? So I know Jamstack is. I use Next.js. It's really interesting, really great, really efficient with compared to other previous stacks. But what is one thing you love about Jamstack, or what are your just comments on Jamstack?
Yes, yeah. So I really love that the Jamstack was this developer-led movement, and I think it's really great that it's built to make life better for developers. And I think there's a byproduct of that, which is it can be difficult to understand how to get started as a new developer in the Jamstack space. But what it's really enabled us to do is, for each piece of a project, pick the tool that is going to work best for us. And there are so many things to choose from today, there's the other side of this, which is that can be really overwhelming. And how do I get started? And how do I stitch all these things together? But for me, I feel like it's powerful. And it's because it's a developer-led movement, I think it also has some focus on the user as well. And so the end user really benefits from this Jamstack approach, because at least the traditional Jamstack approach, which is statically pre-rendering as much content as we can. So we have decoupled ourselves from the data source. So we're just inherently more secure. We have an opportunity to be more performant. We can scale like we've never been able to scale before. And so that's what I really like. And what I like about the space right now, it's exciting because even after it's been around for 5-6 years or so, at least the term has, that we're still seeing massive evolution. And one thing I think that's really interesting that Stackbit is working on is that, I say Jamstack was for the developer and the user. Well, there's this whole other group of people kind of left behind in that movement. And those are the folks who are actually writing the content for the web, the people who are working in CMSs. It became more difficult overnight for those folks to work in the Jamstack. And so the work we're doing at Stackbit is really exciting because we're focused on really making a great experience for content creators without sacrificing the benefits that the developers and the users have gotten from the Jamstack. And so we're seeing a lot of evolution. It's still actively evolving. And I think what the most interesting thing to me right now is that we're seeing a lot of folks drop the term Jamstack or use it less and less, because as Jamstack has evolved, we've seen we're pushing the limits. We don't have a clear definition on what is and what isn't Jamstack, and is that actually important? And so I think it's going to be really interesting, not just to see what happens within the Jamstack community, but to see what happens to the Jamstack community. Does it evolve? Does it define what it is clearer? Does it become comfortable where it is and let the technology continue to advance? Or does it become something else? Do folks move to another space? And so as a result of that, I'm with a few other folks, we're starting this community. Is goofy. We're calling it the Good Websites Club, and And so we'll see what that becomes, if it becomes anything. But that idea is mostly that we want a space for people to be able to talk about just building websites in general without the notion of a stack or some specific set of tooling that you need to be able to build a website successfully. So we can that conversation can evolve. So I think it's going to be really interesting to see what happens there in this new community, if we're able to make it a thing and grow that community. But I think it's also going to be really interesting to watch the Jamstack space and see what happens there as well.
Oh, that's great. I think I'm just starting to learn things with Jamstack, and really excites me by seeing a great developer community behind Jamstack. And as you mentioned, it is both developer focused and end user focused, and both the performance from the end, both the sides, right, from the side of developer and from the end users. I think that's what we need, and we can push the things in that way. I see a lot of Jamstack evangelists out there. I think it's growing community as a whole. People like you, and I think Aviyel is also built with the Jamstack. I think so. Yeah. So we are also focusing on content creation, right? So where the markdown and all the things come up. So the content creation, as you mentioned, we are trying to make sound, or we are trying to bring voice to open source. I call it Aviyel is like a voice of open source, where you talk about open source and help open source projects to sustain by getting quality contributions. So that's the whole idea. And one final question, because open source has come into the picture and it's been my passion. So what is the one thing you want to comment on open source, or what you love about open source? What open source project or anything which helped you personally throughout your journey of 10 years?
Yeah, I like, which one? Oh, so many of them. I think I just love that the true underlying motivation for open source is it's community, it's people, it's that that we don't have to hold on to everything, and we don't have to make money off of everything. That we can say, this problem is interesting to me, so I'm going to solve it, and then I'm going to share the solution to you. Just because if it will help you, then great. That's great. And it takes extra effort to do that, but I think that is that's what I really love about that. And we've seen diversions, and we've seen a lot of money get pumped into open source, and so now there are different flavors of what open source it means today. But I think at the core, or where like some of those community-driven classic open source projects, those are that's what I really love about that. And I mean, so many tools and projects I could talk about. One that I really love, just because it's top of mind, is 11D. So 11D is it's a JavaScript-based static site generator. It's based heavily on Jekyll, which Jekyll was written in Ruby, and so this one's JavaScript, and adds some different features, and continues to evolve, and they just officially in 1.0 beta still, I believe. And I'm thinking about them because I just went to an event yesterday that was all about 11D projects, but and then I found an article by the creator and maintainer Zach of 11D about that we're seeing all these different front end frameworks, and some of them being bought or adopted, and the effect that has on that project. And so I think I'm sure Zach thinks about that all a lot. But the community, the 11D community, which is fairly small but growing, is really passionate about that piece of it. It's not like there doesn't seem to be any ulterior motive or any company that's driving the direction. And it's not typically used for really big, complex sites, but so it's a lot of personal sites, a lot of blogs, and it's what I've built my website with. But I think even so, that's why I love that community. Is everybody's there. For the I don't want to be cheesy and say for the right reasons or something like that, but I love that feels like a real community. It's not about a company. It's about a group of folks who are making websites, web projects all around one tool, and plenty of other communities that are great that I could talk about as well. But that's one that's just been on my mind a lot this week.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm just checking that. It's really interesting. I would love to learn more about this thing in next days. And yeah, I think that was a really great session. I think we are already exceeded our time, but it was really great talking to you, Sean, and really inspiring. I think we have a lot to discuss, but because of time, we are closing it. But maybe in future, we can do a next part of this one. It would be really great on something specific and something more valuable we can give to the community. And before you go, is there any final words you want to give to the community at Aviyel? Especially we are dealing with creators of open source, right? Who are building open source projects, and there are people who are trying to create content on open source. Is there any final words or suggestions from your experience you want to give to them?
Yeah, the last thing I can leave you with, I think, is that the documentation piece of your product is so important, especially if it's developers who are going to use it in some way. That we talked a lot about writing in this session. So, getting in the brain of your user and really and talking to your users and thinking and learning what do they need to know, and just making it really easy to get started, or clearly document how to get started, and keep track of, write some of the common hurdles, how-to guides, just like make it easy for people to use with your product. And it doesn't necessarily mean make the product easier to use. I mean, that's the goal, but you can't do that overnight. What you can do in a shorter period of time is create the right content to help guide people in their journey with your product while you're making the product better. And that's why I'm really excited to see. And I would love to come back. Thank you for having me. I'm really excited to follow Aviyel and see how you all evolve, because I think what you're doing in that space to support the effort of documentation around these projects is going to be so important. And I hope to see that your list of projects continue to grow.
Yeah, thank you so much. And thanks for joining, everyone. And yeah, we have few comments, and thanks for that comments as well. And really great session. And if you somehow missed this session, we are going to post this on YouTube channel. You can check it out. And and you can find more about Sean in the description, and you can connect with him on social handles. And he's giving a great value, and he has written few blogs as well. He has his own website. And that's how I learned. I came in touch with him, right? I saw his blog on CSS-Tricks, and that's how I got in touch with Sean. So you can explore, learn from people that will really help you and your community. And that's the thing I can say finally. And thanks for joining, everybody. And we are closing this session. And have a great night or day, like wherever you are. I think it's day for Sean, so it's night for us in Asia. So
thank you.
Yeah, thanks for joining. Have a great time.